Hey friends, welcome back to my porch. We are going to have a chat today about burning fat and about burning fat in the flame of carbohydrate. When you get into the vegan, high carb, plant-based world, you might hear this phrase come up often. I have. It is a quote that is attributed to somebody. I'll put his name on the screen, but I don't know that anyone really knows exactly where it came from. But the phrase is, fat can only burn in the flame of carbohydrate. Which, if you come from a keto or carnivore background, that sounds like utter nonsense. And so we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to talk about it with data that I have gotten from using my Lumen. Lumen reached out to me a few years ago. I think it was maybe 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. They reached out to me, asked if they could send me their Lumen product. And at the time, I didn't really know how it worked. And there's a really big misconception out there that a Lumen, which is a device that you breathe into, there's a misconception out there that it is a ketone, a breath ketone meter. It is 100% not a breath ketone meter. Although I just heard that they are coming out with a Lumen Pro next year that is going to have a ketone meter also, which is going to change the game completely. Because my huge critique of this back then, and if you saw my videos back then, you already know this, my huge critique is that Lumen markets their product as find out, like a device to find out if you're burning fat or burning carbs. And people like Dr. Jason Fung and Thomas DeLauer and others in the keto community, or that are more keto friendly or fasting friendly, promote this product when it does not work with keto at all. If you are on a keto diet, you will get false information from the product. It is completely unreliable as soon as you are in ketosis with acetone on your breath. So that is what I shared back in the day when I was reviewing the Lumen. I felt like it was really important for people to know that, because when they approached me, and I was a keto channel back then, there was no talk of, this is not going to work with a keto diet. I just, I was like, oh, and a device that tells me if I'm burning fat or burning carbs, fantastic. And so once I got it, and once I started doing more research, I was like, oh, I really need to get the word out here that this is not a keto friendly product. So my critique there still stands. If you are on keto, do not waste your money. This will not be of benefit to you at all if you are wanting to stay keto. They have introduced a thing in their meal plan, macro plan thing, where if you are keto, you can say, I'm keto, and then they will slowly build up the amount of carbs. So it's like you start at keto, but they're trying to get you to build up the amount of carbs. So what the goal of the Lumen is to increase your metabolic flexibility. So it makes sense that it's not appropriate for keto, because being on keto is not being in a state of metabolic flexibility. It's being in a state of ketone burning, which is different than fat burning. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the goal of the Lumen is to teach your body how to switch from burning fatty acids for fuel to burning carbs for fuel. And what the Lumen is actually a CO2 sensor, not an acetone sensor, not a ketone meter, not a ketone breath meter. I can't say that enough. I've heard that miscommunication over and over again, that the Lumen is a breath ketone meter. It is 100% not. But what measuring the CO2 on your breath does is it tells you if you are primarily, and it's always a percentage of both, primarily burning fat or primarily burning carbs in your cells. Now, in the keto world, I did not realize how incomplete the information was that I was receiving about burning fat and burning carbs. The information in the keto world that I consumed when I was in it for, I was in it for like 20 years. And what was communicated to me was, you are either in a glucose burning metabolism mode, or you are in ketosis, which is fat burning. And those are the two things. So everyone on the standard American diet, it has a glucose burning metabolism, and the only way to switch into a fat burning mode would be to go keto. What I have learned since then is that that is not true at all. And our cells can burn fatty acids for fuel or glucose for fuel. And even though each individual cell can only burn one at a time, different cells can be burning different ones at the same time. Your brain can be using glucose and other cells in your body can be using fat at the same time. So that's why with the lumen, when you're measuring, it's never 100% fat or 100% carbs. It's always that there's a percentage, 85% of your cells are using fat, 15% are using carbs, and vice versa. And so you're on this scale all the time. It's never just one or the other. And then the other thing that I did not understand because of the information I got in the keto community was that ketosis is actually something completely separate from burning fats and burning fatty acids and burning glucose. Ketosis is when your body doesn't have enough glucose for the processes that require glucose. And so that's like, and this is very simplified, and I'm not a scientist or an expert. It's just, this is my understanding of it. It's kind of like ketosis or ketones. It's the body's way of taking fat and making it into something that can be used in the place of glucose. But it's completely separate from the two fuels, fat and carbohydrates. And there was always this thing in the back of my mind, like, how can it really be true that ketosis is the only way to burn fat? Because we see people that are not in ketosis that are skinny. We see fruitarians that are very skinny, and they're not going to be in ketosis at least very often. If maybe they get into ketosis at night for a little while, but the idea that the only way to burn fat is in ketosis, it never really made sense completely to me. And then with the information I've learned now, it just seems to me like that's just not true. So now my experience with the lumen, when you're on keto and you have acetone on your breath, which is a ketone byproduct, the lumen counts that as CO2, and higher CO2 means a higher percentage of carbohydrates being burned by your cells. Lower percentage of CO2 means more fat being burned by your cells. So as soon as you have that acetone on your breath, and you went past the burning fatty acids for fuel into ketosis, your lumen will think you're back into carb burn. So that's where it becomes completely inaccurate. So for me, when I was on keto, I just got to the point where I was like, well, this is not helpful at all. It doesn't give me any information. So I didn't use it. I told you guys all about it and I stopped using it. So when I started moving away from keto and started adding more carbs to my diet, I decided to pick it up again because I was like, I'm interested now to see where I'm at between carbs and fat as fuel. And I was wondering if it might be a helpful tool at that point. So I picked it up and used it several times in the period where I was eating around 100 grams of carbs and the period where I was eating around 200 grams of carbs per day. And so if you're not familiar with how lumen works, the goal of the lumen is not to be in fat burning all the time. When people are like, oh, I want to lose weight, therefore I should be in fat burning all the time. That's not, like lumen tries to tell people, that's not the goal. The goal is to move between. So there's not a bad number on the scale. The scale is 1 through 5 of when you measure your breath. And 1 and 2 are higher percentage fat burning. 3 is kind of 50-50 fat and carbs. And then 4 and 5 are the higher percentage burning carbs. So what you want is when you have fasted or overnight, you want your body to be in fat burn mode. When you're at rest, it's good for your body to be in fat burn mode. And then during the day when you're eating, and like lumen recommends a higher carb diet, or they're more moderate carb really. And so what they want is after your meal, you want to shift into carb burn. And that shows that your body is burning off the fuel that you just gave it. And then it'll shift back into fat burn mode. So you can kind of know how metabolically flexible you are by looking at how efficiently you move into fat burn mode overnight, and then how efficiently you use the fuel that you eat during the day, and then how quickly you kind of move back into fat burn mode. And so some people have the issue of being in fat burn mode all the time, even though they eat carbs, they'll still get these low numbers like they're in fat burn mode. And that's a sign of metabolic inflexibility. It's kind of like the body doesn't know what to do with the carbs, and so it stores them. At least that's what Lumen says. And so that's not what you want. And then also you want to make sure that you are shifting into fat burn overnight. And if you're not, if you wake up and you have those high numbers where you're burning a higher percentage of carbs, it's a sign that your body is, well, it could either be that you've moved it all the way into ketosis, which makes it confusing, but it can also be that your body is kind of stressed. Maybe there's high cortisol and the gluconeogenesis is really popping and it's pumping out glucose, like in a stressed state, your body wants that quick fuel of glucose. And so if you are stressed overnight, then your body can, start pumping out that glucose and you'll see those higher, like your body is in that more carb burn mode, even though you haven't eaten carbs, in 8 or 12 hours or whatever. So what I found when I was eating 100 grams of carbs and 200 grams of carbs per day is that it was really difficult for me to shift over into fat burning overnight. I would wake up and I would almost always be a 3, which is kind of 50-50. And just, it doesn't show optimal metabolic flexibility. And on the Lumen app, they give you all kinds of recommendations and things like, eat earlier in the evening, have a longer fast, all these different things that are, very, they're not keto, but they kind of lean towards keto tools, like eating fewer carbs at dinner, having that longer fast, and that's supposed to help you get into fat burn overnight. I tried all kinds of different things and nothing really made a difference. I always was, around that 3 in the morning, and I couldn't ever get it any lower for getting into fat burn. And I like kind of put it down, like, I don't even know, like there wasn't anything that was like moving the needle on it. I wasn't getting better. It was just what it was. Even though I kept trying things, nothing really made a difference. So then these last 2 months where I have been eating the sugar diet and I have upped my carbs to around 400, sometimes up to 500, and I've lowered my fat and I've moderated my protein, I decided to pick up the Lumen again and just see where I was at. And imagine my utter shock and surprise to find that I am waking up in fat burn mode every single morning. Now, there was only one day in the last, 2 weeks that I've been using the Lumen that I woke up at a level 3. So that's, not ideal. And that was on day 1 of my cycle. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense, I guess. But besides that, I have been waking up in level 2 or level 1 every single morning, like without fail. I also have noticed that I do, like I mentioned, you don't want to just be in fat burn mode all the time. So I'm like, just waking up in fat burn is good, but you want to make sure that you're actually cycling to those higher numbers throughout the day as you're eating carbs. And I'm eating a lot of carbs, so I want to make sure that my body is really burning through them efficiently. I will check my breath like 30 minutes to an hour or so after my meal, and my numbers go up 3, 4, 5, and then it's kind of shocking how fast they get back to that level 2 or level 1 after a meal, even when I have like over 100 grams of carbohydrates in a meal. I found that when I was measuring my breath, my like after meal breath, I needed to not wait too long. If I waited an hour and a half or 2 hours after my meal, I would already be back into fat burn. And so in order to see the higher numbers of my body using the carbohydrates as fuel, I had to go at that 30-minute mark or the hour mark. And that's where I would see those numbers. So what that is telling me, if, the information on the Lumen is accurate, and, I'm just taking it for what it is. I can't vouch for, how perfectly accurate it is, but I feel like I have some good data points, having used it for, couple years and in different states that my body has been in and watching it. The information is at least interesting and probably a little bit useful. But what I'm finding with my body being in this high carb state, with my fat lower and my protein moderated, it seems like my body is burning through the carbohydrates very efficiently. And I also see that with my blood sugar. I don't have like high spikes of blood sugar that stay high for a long time. My blood sugar, hardly rises these days with 100 grams of carbohydrates in a meal, and it comes right back down. And so between those two things, I'm getting the impression that my body is very efficiently burning those carbohydrates for fuel, and then my body is going back into fat burn mode, and it is very efficiently going back into fat burn mode overnight. And one thing that Lumen talks about is, and I already mentioned this a little bit, how if you push your fast for too long, your body will get stressed and start pumping out the gluconeogenesis, and your carb percentage will go up. Your number will go higher into carb burn. And so that's kind of a stress response. And what I'm finding is that like overnight when I'm sleeping and in the morning, I stay in the fat burn mode without seeing the numbers go up very quickly. And with my experience using it before, I would see that where I would, get a low number, and then I'd wait 30 minutes or an hour and I'd test again, and you'd start to see the number kind of climbing. And that's a sign that either you're getting into ketosis, whole different story, or your body is in that stress cortisol state and it's pumping out the gluconeogenesis and, giving your body more carbs to burn. So my impression is my body is not in that cortisol state as often, or it doesn't bump into it as quickly, and I'm able to stay in fat burn mode for longer. Obviously, I don't want to push it because fasting will eventually get you into that stressed state, but it's been really interesting to see how long I can sustain that fat burn mode. It seems like my body is in a non-stressed state where it's working efficiently. It's burning through fuel that I'm giving it. It feels safe enough that it doesn't have to jump into gluconeogenesis in order to have that quick fuel to run away from the bear or whatever it is. And it just feels like my body is cycling through the different fuels appropriately. And this goes along with me feeling better and my sleep. I've talked to you guys all about this, about the different benefits that I've seen from reducing my fat and raising my carbs. And so to get this information from the Lumen, it kind of just lines up like, okay, I think my body's actually functioning the way, like in a comfortable way, the way it wants to function. And it's just another really interesting data point. So anyways, I just wanted to share all of that. Take it for what it's worth. Lumen, if you're on keto again, don't waste your money. It's not going to be for you. It has been really interesting to watch this trend. I have not used their macro counting or their recommendations. The idea is you're supposed to use this every morning, and then they give you new macros every day to it kind of goes up and down, and it's supposed to bring you metabolic flexibility. I haven't found that to be very helpful, but to be able to actually just see where I'm at with whatever diet I'm doing, that has been really interesting. It's another one of those tools that is interesting and fun, but maybe not necessary. But if you're interested in checking out Lumen, I do have a link to it. They signed me up as an affiliate way back when they sent it to me. So I'll put that down in the description if you want to check it out. And again, they are coming out with a brand new product that I think will be way more useful because it will detect the acetone. And they were talking in their live stream that they did about it, about how even when you are eating carbs, your body can dip into ketosis, like light ketosis here and there. And so they're talking about using the Lumen to use all three instead of just being metabolically flexible between carbs and fatty acids, being metabolically flexible between carbs, fatty acids, and ketones. And they, like they were saying, you don't have to go fully into a ketogenic diet 100% in order to get benefits from some ketones here and there. So I think that is going to be fascinating when that product becomes available, and hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on it. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. And that was my biggest critique of Lumen back then. And apparently they've been working on this for a few years, so maybe I was instrumental in, probably not, but maybe I was instrumental in getting them to go down this road of adding that acetone meter in there, which will be really cool. I'm going to leave this video here. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you have used a Lumen and what you think of it. And I will see you again in the next video.